Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Monday, February the 11th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And really, I believe that what we've done, and let me just back out here. This was our range from Friday. We fell out the top, we fell out the bottom, and now if you notice, prices have gotten back inside this range. We had a down channel working up, down, a up channel working up, and now we had a little channel back down to the lower side of the range. And prices have really just worked themselves right back into that same range. You can see right across there from Friday. And so I believe that all we've done is work ourselves back into this range. So, could we make another leg down like this one? Maybe, because we do have a two-legged correction in here. So we could make another leg down and come down and test this area. But it's really late in the day, and it's just hard to tell. I would be surprised if we don't come back up and test this high side again and work from there. But we'll just have to see what happens. There really weren't a whole lot of entries today. I'll talk about the few we had, and just not much volume. There's not much movement. There's just not a lot going on, and you have to be really patient on days like this, and you have to pay attention to the failed entries and the traps and things like that. So you're better off to wait for prices to come back to the kind of sure areas that I call the key entry points and things like that. So let's just start with trade one up here, and we'll talk about them and go from there. Again, there's not very many today, so it won't take long to do our chart lesson today. But we had a failed second entry long here. First of all, we've been in this trading range. So even though this is a different trading day, you can see it started out finding resistance right there as well. So this is just a failed break out. We had a pullback, a first entry long, another pullback, and then that second entry long triggered, and this big bullish bar. There was a trap right there, and this turned down. So that's a good place. That actually makes this a second entry short as well, working off the lows. And you got to be expecting prices to probably come back and test this range area again. So I felt like that was a pretty good place to enter today. Didn't know it was going to travel down as far as it did, but it turned out to be a good trade. Any runners would have been safe. Nice setup. There was actually a two-legged pullback to the EMA right here as well, but I didn't like this one because the last lows were right here, and it was so close to those lows. And you see it did kind of hesitate a little bit there and pulled back. So that's kind of like a breakout pullback short. So there's a possible long there. I didn't mark it. I don't like it because the trend line was obviously further back. And you see it didn't go. It kind of worked its way down and then had a two-legged correction and a little break of that trend line, and then moved to a new low, and then we changed directions. And that's what you want to kind of see happen, is that trend line break and a retest to a new low, and then a change of directions. So anyway, there was a little double top right here, right at the trend line, a little failed breakout. The reverse, we tried to go higher twice. So even though there's a little overlap there, I still felt like that was a pretty good setup because it was the first break of the trend line. And you can see it did. It was a fairly nice move down. That's just a two-legged pullback to the EMA and trend line, and very rarely do those fail. If you didn't take this one, I'm actually going to change this one to green because it's definitely a little more aggressive because of all the overlap there and the fact that the support was right here. And we went a little lower, so really your support at the moment should have been right there. And you can see there's really enough room kind of to scalp out there. So actually, before I tell you that, let me just verify that. Your entry would have been at 1175. So no, you would have had to get that tick, and you see it got it right there, and then it actually ended up going a little bit lower. But so I'm changing that one to green. But if you saw that trade, it's a two-legged pull back to the EMA, the trend line, the first really kind of break of the trend line. So it sets up a nice second entry short right there. So it does meet our criteria, and you see it did work. Those trades fail very rarely. They're they're ideal setups and they make us a lot of money. But then you had all these matching lows across here. Notice that, and even if you had it right there, and we broke lower and failed, but it's usually better to wait on a second entry, especially on a move like this. But we did have a possible trend line break and then a failed break below these matching lows, and then you got and this is a two-legged pullback to that EMA right there. One leg pullback, second leg, and so a lot of people could have gotten trapped short right there. It's not a really good short setup at this point because this has been really strong support and resistance, and you figure it's going to fail. Nothing worth going short on, so just sit tight, and then you get a nice, look at that reversal bar. That's a perfect reversal bar right at these lows. So then you can go long right there. And it took a minute. You might have gotten shaken out of this trade, but when it keeps testing that low and it can't go lower, that's usually a pretty good sign. And then this turns into a failed second entry short that gives you a chance to go long again. So another possible long right there, and that's coming right off the possible trend line. Move that around just a little. It should have been more like that right there. And you can see that was the highs, and then there's your lows, and you get another break right here. And it was a little bit risky even on this one going short, but there's a failed second entry long there, and you're at the highs where you had all those highs from Friday. You know that's strong resistance, so by taking a second entry short there, you got to figure we're probably coming back down here. You still got to pay attention to these trend lines. You can't totally ignore them, and even this one, so that might have scared you away from that one, but usually you're going to break below it and come back and retest it or whatever, and we tried a couple of times and then went lower. But, you know, it was kind of obvious, to me at least at this point, that we were probably back into this trading range. And since you had that trap right there, you can't ignore that. So a good place to go short. Easy scalp, nothing much more than that. And then we bounced off this low end, and so there's you a chance to get long down here at the lows. And actually I had this right across there. A chance to get long down here, figuring we're going to come back up to the high side now, and here we go. We're headed back that way. Another easy scalp, no runners. Basically, the only trade that would have caught you a runner was this early 7 o'clock or so trade up here. You might have got a little more on your runners here, but I wouldn't have held this once you started to overlap. I would have exited that. And and that was really it for today. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, and really I'm almost going to change that one to green too, just because they're more aggressive. But they do, you can't hardly ignore these, even though this one you had a much more clearer downtrend. This one is not such a, you know, you can see how choppy it is. I don't really call that an uptrend, even though you still got to put your trend lines on there and pay attention. But notice how we didn't even check up here. We just went right on through. But it did come back really fast. So, but anyway, that was pretty much it for today. And there's just not much more to say about today than what you've got here. And again, there's always the possibility that we're going to make another leg down that's this size over here. But I wouldn't be betting on it. You can see there's leg 1. And if we get leg 2, that means we got a target down here of about 1507. And you can see that trend line there is kind of holding, but wouldn't surprise me if we don't tick lower something to trap, or even just keep working higher. So, but that's, you know, that's really all there is to talk about today. There's just not much more going on than that right there. And when you have days like this, a lot of times, you know, even if I wasn't closing up early now, trying to trade a little bit earlier and get my day over earlier with, I probably would call it a day, because it's not worth hanging around and trying to trade this in the afternoon, because you can get whipsawed and tricked pretty quickly, and then you don't have time to make it back or whatever. So if you've been following our videos, you know that I'm not big on trading much after lunchtime, 1 o'clock. Definitely our standing rule is nothing after 2:30 for sure. No new trades anyway. If you're still managing a a runner or something on a trend day, you might ride it all the way to close, but you don't take any new trades. Definitely not after 2:30, and personally, I just don't even like to take them much after 1 o'clock. And if you go back and just look at what's been happening lately, look what happens from 7 o'clock to about 9, and then look what happened. Nothing after that. And then look at this morning from 7 o'clock to about 9, and then look what happened. Not much else. That's kind of the MO of what we've been getting lately. And here's another day, a couple of days back, from 7 o'clock to 9, almost 10 o'clock. Pretty good movement, but we had a nice rebound off of that one, so that was a pretty good day. But generally in the afternoons, your volume's drying up, and there's just not much happening. And wouldn't surprise me if we don't stay between here and here, between now and the close. I'm not saying don't take that and try to trade that, because I don't know that's what's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. And it wouldn't surprise me if we don't end up making another leg down here either, because that's a nice setup for that. But just don't let them trick you. So wait for the right kind of setups, following our rules and so forth. But anyway, that's about 10 minutes worth. Not much else to say about today. So I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you had a good trading day. Hope you're going to have a good week. We had a nice weekend. I took a weekend off. I didn't answer any emails or anything. So if you didn't get any emails, replies to me from today, that's why. I just kind of took a weekend off and took a break and didn't answer emails or anything all weekend. So, but we'll get back at it for the rest of the week. We'll do our next lesson again tomorrow. And again, hopefully you had a good day today. And if not, we'll get a better one tomorrow. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. Hey, we'll see you next time.